to continue with our discussion, and we will continue with the deliberations with item 5b, improving environment and health in the context of Health 2020 and the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development, outcome of the 6th Ministerial Conference on Environment and Health. The relevant documents can be found in EUR/RC67/15 and EUR/RC67/15 Addendum 1, EUR/RC67/Conf.Doc 8, and EUR/RC67/15 Addendum 2. Under this agenda item, we will review the main outcomes of the 6th Ministerial Conference on Environment and Health, which took place in Ostrava on the 13th till 15th June this year. Let me first of all thank, on behalf of WHO, the government of the Czech Republic, the Moravian Silesian region, and the city of Ostrava for their outstanding, generous, and friendly hospitality in a unique and inspiring location. As part of this session, we intend to reflect on the outcomes of the conference and implications on the commitments taken in Ostrava for the work on environment and health in the European region. We will also discuss a draft resolution on the Ostrava Declaration, which urging member states, international institutions, and intergovernmental and non-governmental organizations and the WHO Secretariat to support the implementation of the commitments taken in Ostrava. In addition to the working documents for this session, I wish to draw your attention to the Ostrava Declaration and its 2 annexes, and to the reports and publications that were launched on the occasion of the conference. These can all be found on the website of the WHO Regional Office for Europe. Let us start this agenda item by hearing from another of the voices of the region, here Jørgen Thomsen from Denmark. Please start the film.
My name is Jørgen, and I'm a graphic designer and a citizen of Copenhagen. As well, I'm a teacher for dyslexic people. We have to accept both governments and municipalities and citizens. We have to stay together now. We cannot deal with these great problems, so we have to work together. We got 2 floods. One in 2011 and one in 2013. We don't really talk about it anymore because it was such a catastrophe. And suddenly just the sky fell down. In the end, when everything was over, we knew we had to do something completely different. We had to do something new. We have to listen to young people, older people, people we don't think know anything about this. We have to involve all citizens, because if this has to be successful, a lot of people have to be involved. I worked on a project down in our own courtyard down here, green roofs. And I worked in a couple of projects where we were going to remove asphalt and put in different kind of plants. I think people are healthier because of the green areas now. The community is more resilient today than it was before, much more resilient. Not just because of what we've done, but also because we accept the problem. And we are setting up new ways of thinking. I remember the floods here, and everybody in this area, this neighborhood, remember the flood, because this place was completely underwater. The streets over there were completely underwater. I think people feel safer in many ways, because we can handle water. We got deep pools down here, so water from the roofs are running out here and staying here for hours, maybe 24 hours before it's let into the sewers and it can pass into the ocean. A place like this will, of course, change people's life because they are coming more out of the houses, out of the apartments. They'll meet down here and talk more down here. And we can already see cafes over there. But the whole construction, the whole idea will bring people to life and the square to life. There are so many flowers here, plants here, and there are so many insects. This is in the middle of the city, but just look at that plant there. Look at all the bees over there. It's fantastic. Bedre helbred til alle.
Now I would like to give the floor to Dr. Saran Matic, Coordinator for the Environment and Health Process, to present us the main achievements, priorities and way forward based on our working documents. Saran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dear Director General, Madam Regional Director, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, addressing environment and health remains a very important priority for the World Health Organization globally and regionally and in the countries. It is also highlighted by our new Director General, who has identified health impacts of climate and environmental change as one of his 4 priorities, along with universal health coverage, health emergencies, and women's and children's and adolescent health. Last night, Director General reminded us of the precarious times in which we live, including from the perspective of environment and climate change. And while North America is being beaten by the hurricanes, Europe lived this summer in the age of the Lucifer. Let's not forget that for the first time since we record weather, this part of the world recorded in 11 countries average temperatures of over 40 degrees for more than 7 days. And this is just the beginning. In the European region, environmental risk factors are estimated to cause at least 1.4 million deaths per year, with approximately half of those being attributed to air pollution. This has also important effects on non-communicable diseases, since approximately 1 in 4 ischemic heart diseases and strokes and 1 in 5 cancers are estimated to be caused by environmental exposures. The environmental burden of disease carries considerable economic and social cost, consumes significant resources, prevents the attainment of optimal health and well-being, and undermines societal and economic development. The World Health Organization Regional Office for Europe estimated that the annual economic cost of premature death and disease caused by air pollution in the European region in 2015 stood at staggering 1.6 trillion euros. This, combined with the growing health impacts of climate change, chemical and physical agents, economic activity and waste generation, overuse of water and other natural resources, and unsustainable production and consumption patterns suggest that the significance of these environmental factors is greater than previously thought and requires bolder political action to be effectively addressed. Luckily, environment-related deaths and diseases are by and large preventable, and we have the knowledge, policy instruments, tools, and interventions to do so. Health is a political choice. And nowhere more than in environment and health, the importance of working across different sectors of the government and in partnership is the only way forward. This was the background to the 6th Ministerial Conference on Environment and Health in Ostrava in the Czech Republic this year in June. The conference was warmly and generously hosted by the government of the Czech Republic, the Moravian Silesian region, and the city of Ostrava. WHO Regional Office for Europe co-organized it together with the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe and the United Nations Environment Programme. Staged in what until the early 1990s was the gas tanker of one of the largest European iron factories, the venue provided an unusual but highly relevant and inspiring setting for the deliberations about the current and future priorities and concerns regarding development, environment, health, and well-being. The conference was actually the end of an extensive consultative process initiated in 2015 at the midterm review meeting in Haifa in Israel. Member states, together with a wide spectrum of scientists and stakeholders, reviewed the entire environment and health agenda and identified areas of greatest concern and highest influence on health and well-being in the European region, as well as the interventions with the greatest potential for reducing the premature mortality and preventable morbidity of our citizens. In parallel, member states undertook an extensive and inclusive open political negotiation process to achieve a consensus on the political commitments to be made there. For the first time in the history of the European Environment and Health process, the conference was attended by numerous representatives of regions and municipalities, reflecting the emphasis placed on the paramount role played by cities and the subnational level of government in addressing environment and health concerns, and the desire of this process and of us collectively to make a visible difference for the people. The conference also resulted in a most welcome re-engagement of the European Union as a stakeholder of the European Environment and Health process. The main political outcome of the conference was the adoption of the Ostrava Ministerial Conference Declaration, which is complemented by a compendium of possible actions to advance the implementation of the declaration and by the revised institutional arrangements for the European Environment and Health process. The main political commitments taken in the Ostrava Declaration evolve around four main areas. Firstly, the declaration defines the European Environment and Health process as a mechanism for the attainment of environment-related health goals and targets of the 2030 Agenda through the implementation of Health 2020 and of the relevant WHO resolutions and decisions. Secondly, it reaffirms the commitment to address the persistent gaps and needs in environment and health in the European region. Thirdly, it commits the member states and partners to promoting coherence across all political levels, from international to local, and to developing inclusive platforms to facilitate dialogue at the international, national, and subnational levels of policymaking and engaging institutions and social actors and stakeholders. And fourthly, it commits to enhance national implementation through the development of portfolios of action on environment and health by each and every member state by the end of 2018, which will take into account national priorities, means, and capacities. Importantly, member states acknowledged that the diversity of the European region in terms of environment and health challenges, political priorities, means, and capacities requires a flexible and context-specific approach in the definition of national priorities and the formulation of the national portfolios for actions. Therefore, with an understanding that environment and health actions in very traditional areas such as water, sanitation, and hygiene need to be pursued until the last gaps and unacceptable inequalities in access to basic facilities are closed, the Ostrava Conference also focused on the interventions that have potentially the greatest impact on the achievement of the relevant SDG goals and targets, primarily on the reduction of preventable premature mortality from environment factors today and in the context of global climate and environmental change tomorrow. WHO, particularly through its European Center for Environment and Health, generously hosted by Germany in Bonn, stands ready to continue to provide its technical expertise and guidance in these areas to support member states, cities and regions in the pursuit of the Ostrava Declaration. In the new context provided by the 2030 Agenda and Health 2020 on the one hand, and by the new understanding of the complex links between the environment and health on the other, it is particularly important for ministries of health to develop interest for, commitment to, and capacity for engaging with other sectors. To fulfill this unique role, the health sector should, first, develop a sound understanding of the nature and magnitude of the issues at stake and of their economic and social implications. Advocate for evidence-based and effective actions. Develop essential capacities to conduct assessments, monitor environment and health issues, and develop and implement norms and standards. To mainstream environment and health in national health policy, particularly as part of the implementation of the Health 2020 priority on creating resilient communities and supportive environments. And last but not least, adopt measures that render health systems environmentally sustainable, thereby increasing efficiency in the use of the resources available to the health sector and minimizing the health sector's environmental impact. We are also presenting to you today the draft resolution that you are invited to consider here. It endorses the Ostrava Declaration, calls on member states to develop national portfolios of actions on environment and health by the end of 2018 as standalone policy documents or as parts of other policy platforms in the countries, as tools to strengthen national implementation of the commitments made, and provides clear mandate to the World Health Organization to pursue this agenda forward and indicates the minimum requirements needed to do so. With this, let me conclude the introduction to the topic of this afternoon and express our gratitude to all member states, partners and individuals who contributed in various ways to the success of the Ostrava Conference and to our collective achievements in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before I open the debate, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Marcela Kubikova on behalf of the delegation of the Czech Republic. The floor is yours.
Distinguished delegates, the Czech Republic is very proud that it could co-organize the 6th Ministerial Conference on Environment and Health in Ostrava this June. Together with the World Health Organization, we chose an untypical venue, the industrial construction restored into an extraordinary multifunctional center. We are sure that participants appreciated this venue, which undoubtedly contributed to the achievement of the conference. The Moravian Silesian region is well known for its history, which is inseparably related to the mining activities. Thanks to the sensitive interventions of municipalities and continuous efforts of citizens, the region was successfully revitalized. However, there is always much to improve, more can be done. The most acute problem, air pollution, is still one of the most pressing issues. The survey on prevalence of allergies and respiratory diseases in children from Moravian Silesian region, conducted in 2015 with more than 7,000 of children's patients, demonstrated that the incidence of respiratory symptoms was significantly higher in this region compared to the whole country data. The Czech Republic is focusing on air quality improvement through strict legislation and ambitious air quality improvement programs. The Ministry of Environment launched a funding scheme for replacement of obsolete domestic heating systems and analyzes feasibility of introducing low-emission zones and regulation plans for the most polluted regions and cities. The outcomes of the 6th Ministerial Conference on Environment and Health, the Ostrava Declaration, together with an action plan for its implementation, and agreement on revised institutional arrangements for the European environment and health process after 2017, can be a very important step how to help any region to improve the quality of life. The 6th Ministerial Conference on Environment and Health came up to our expectations. Now it is time to begin with the implementation of the Ostrava Declaration in its full scope. The national portfolios of actions have to be the key priority, which will help us to address the persistent burden of diseases attributed to environmental determinants. The Czech Republic will not cease to manifest its preparedness to work on the implementation of the Ostrava Declaration, also in the light of the Health 2020, the European Policy for Health and Well-being, and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. To conclude, I would like to stress that the common effort of the whole European region of the World Health Organization is needed, and the Czech Republic is looking forward to cooperate with all the stakeholders. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. And I now give the floor to Mr. von Vosen-Asnake, United Nations Environment Programme, to introduce our panel and moderate a short panel discussion. Please.
Good afternoon. My name is Wandi. I am from the UN Environment Program. I'm the Policy Partnership Coordinator. I understand we have 25 minutes, so I'll try to moderate this session as fast as I can. Let me call the members of the panel. Professor Embry from Georgia. Nick from the UN Economic Commission for Europe, Dr. Bertolini, His Excellency Mr. Borbelli. I'm very pleased to be moderating this session, but at the same time, for those of you who are not familiar with the work of the UN Environment, we were very delighted to be part of the Ostrava conference as a joint host with the WHO, UNECE, but also with the Czech Republic. Last night, just before that wonderful musical show, the new Director General, in his calm way, said he's very concerned. He's very concerned about security, development, health, environment, and many more. And you heard from Dr. Matic, 1.4 million people in this region are dying because of environmental risk factors. Should we not be concerned? Absolutely yes. And what do we do about that? Just to repeat some of the statistics we were given, air pollution alone, 600,000 people, $1.6 trillion in terms of cost. If you want to talk about water and sanitation, every day 14 people are dying. 14 million people do not have access to basic water resources. 62 million lack basic sanitation. And we are the generation who can actually send people to the moon, but we cannot even provide basic services like water and sanitation. That is very concerning. Of course, don't forget about exposure to chemicals. Waste production, in this region alone, 1.5 million contaminated sites. What do we do with them? As the legacy of our industrial development in the region. Impact of climate change. How do we make our cities more sustainable, healthier, resilient? Because they make up globally 2% of the land area. But if you look at the amount of activities that goes on in our cities, 70% of our economic activities, the GDP, is actually generated from our cities. more than 60% of the energy consumption, again, it's in our cities. 70% of the greenhouse gas emission also comes from our cities. And another 70% is about global West. So we should be very concerned. And having said that, let me turn to the panel. These are a wonderful group of people who've been engaged in the health and environment process, but also on a range of international environment governance issues. If I may start with Professor Amran from Georgia. He's the Director General of National Center for Disease Control and Public Health. Considering your engagement in the health and environment process, not only in the region, but in other places too, one of the things we came out from Ostrava is the development of national portfolios of actions on environment and health. I think that's a wonderful outcome. However, how do you see Georgia, the Republic of Georgia, coming up with this national portfolios of actions, but also what priorities do you see Georgia will pick up, and what kind of support do you need from, let's say, WHO, Economic Commission for Europe, UN Environment?
Thank you very much for the invitation to this panel. It's an honor for me. Actually, my country, Georgia, and the Georgian government is very much committed to environment and health problems. Georgia is involved in, since Helsinki, in the European process, environment and health. Unfortunately, during the Frankfurt time, Georgia was a part of Soviet Union and was not able to participate. It's symbolic that we are talking about today on the environment and problems here in Budapest, because one of the Ministerial, I remember very good, took place here in Budapest in 2004 when was discussed very special issue, the environment and health impact on the children, and was issued very important, I mean, the declaration and the documents what are guiding us in the process. Regarding the environment and health issues in Georgia and how we are reflecting on the Ostrava Declaration, sure, that's it's the Ostrava Declaration is one of the milestones I think on this way, and we have been Georgia involved in the drafting some of the documents, because as a member in 2014-2015 the European Ministerial Board of Environment and Health, we participated in the initial drafting documents and discussing. As well, maybe you remember in 2015, the UNESC has organized together with the Georgian government in Batumi a very important conference on environment, which was adopted, where was adopted the so-called the Batumi Declaration, greener, cleaner, and smarter, which is also quite a significant declaration and document in this process. Actually, during the Ostrava Declaration, I remember very good that I took also the speech and I told that the declaration is very good, the amendments are very good, but now it's a time for action, because only to have a declaration on the paper without the implementation, and that's why the countries need to have a guidance in the implementation process. Particularly the countries former, the Eastern Bloc and former Soviet countries need the commitment and need support from the international organizations. And here, my country, and I'd like to thank very much the WHO Euro, particularly the Bonn office, because they are supporting very much my country. We, together with the WHO Euro and Bonn office particularly, we have drafted already the second version of the NEHAP, National Environment and Health Plan, and I hope very much that the government will approve this in end of this year or at least beginning next year. Together also the European Union, we've got quite a good twinning project in environment and health. This is together with the Italy, Public Health England and the Poland. And during 2 years, we will strengthen our legislation. As you know, Georgia is a member country for the European, we signed in 2014 the association agreement to the European Union. And one of the major topic in this, the document in the association agreement, is to harmonize the legislation, our legislation with the European legislation. And quite a big, this segment in this legislation is dedicated to the environment, and particularly as well to the environment and health. And this twinning project will support us together with the NEHAP. I think this, because first of all, everything starts with the strong legislation. And our first goal is to harmonize our legislation with the European. Then another issue I'd like also here to mention and thank the German government, because in the environment and health process, the role of the German government is very, and particularly the German federal agency has, released for us the grant in chemical as well, and we already made quite a significant steps in the strengthening the chemical legislation as well. This is but it is, just the first steps, and I think the collaboration with the international organization in this process for us is crucial.
Thank you very much, Professor Emran. Talking about Batumi, in fact, one of the things we could also highlight is education for sustainable development, which was a key pillar of the Batumi conference. And looking at the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, education is actually the glue that connects each and every other goal. And that's why we need to invest in education for sustainable development. Of course, a partnership with the different ministries and also the twinning activities that you mentioned. Let me now move to His Excellency Mr. Borbeli, a champion on environment governance, I must say. You've been a Minister of Environment, you've been the Minister of Regional Development, you've been a Minister of Infrastructure, not to mention you have also chaired the Commission for Sustainable Development and also the Governing Council of UNEP. The previous panel talked about we need to understand the language of other sectors. And you would be the perfect person in terms of working on these different portfolios. How do we then use the Ostrava outcome in terms of engaging all ministries, not just the Ministry of Environment and Health, but all ministries to ensure that this agenda is actually implemented? And the second one is, there's a lot of political support, there's a lot of leadership, but that has not been translated into action. So from your experience, what is the solution for that?
Thank you very much for inviting me. Let me stand up, it's better for me to see each other. And in my opinion, in our life, like citizens, if we are thinking sustainably way, and of course, everybody from this audience thinking sustainably, we need a vision. We need a vision how we are thinking about our life, our private life, our community life. And we need a vision on the level of small communities, bigger communities, different institutions. We have this vision. 2015 was a milestone. We have 4 very important summits. And it's incredible for us, and I hope for the future generation. Sendai, Addis Ababa, the Agenda 2030, and the summit in Paris. So what we are doing with this, it's our job. It's our job of all citizens on the earth. And this is the main issue, how we can provide these very important sentences. You know, I came from Transylvania, Romania, and Transylvania, you know, is the Dracula's country, so you have to be very careful with me. We have a day each year. We organize a bicycle tour in Târgu Mureș, Neumarkt, Marosvásárhely, because I am Hungarian from Romania. We make a tour, and after that we are lifting our bikes, 2,000, 3,000 people, and we are thinking that we have a critical mass of those who try to transform the willingness of politicians to make more bicycle roads. So in my opinion, the most important issue is to create the critical mass of all stakeholders, politicians, business community, NGOs, education, all. But how? First, we have to make more fashionable the SDGs. And I am referring to all SDGs, of course. But we are lucky because SDG 3 is linked to all SDGs. So we have to use this. How we make more fashionable SDGs? I have also my own example in Romania. I organized 4 meetings, regional meetings with IPU, parliamentary meetings, because we have not forget the parliamentary dimension. Without laws, without the willingness of politicians, without, as you mentioned, all the ministries together and all the institutions, we'll be a failure. So we organized 4 meetings regarding SDGs, and I hope that we create a critical mass of those politicians in this area, Caucasus, Eastern, Central Europe, who understand more what means SDGs and who can put in practice, because we are speaking about monitoring, about accountability, about how to implement these issues. And I believe that we need an institutional framework, and we have no time to enter in details, but we have also coordination. And that's why, based on a parliamentarian declaration 1 year ago, the Romanian parliament was the first from 170 parliaments from IPU who made this declaration with very clear messages. And one of the messages was to create near the Prime Minister's office a department, which I am heading from a couple of months ago. And I hope that we will meet each other, I hope, sustainably in the coming years. And I can tell that it deserves, because we can create this critical mass and to coordinate all the ministries, all the stakeholders which are. So, in my opinion, we will be able to have not just a vision, but to create the possibilities for the future generation for a better life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, and we sincerely hope Romania would probably be the first one to showcase we do have a national portfolio of environment and health action in the country. And indeed, I forgot, you also have a very important responsibility at the moment in the Prime Minister's office in terms of leading the Sustainable Development Agenda. Having said that, let me move to my colleague Nick from the Economic Commission for Europe. Professor Emras suggested that one part of the implementation at the national level is developing legislation, supportive legislation. I'm very aware of the role of UNECE, an important partner not only for UN Environment, but also to member states in the region. I know you developed so many regional instruments, the different multilateral environment agreements. How do you see at least the 5, 6 that you have within the UNECE, the conventions plus the protocols, to help us implement the Ostrava declaration? And the second question that I have for you is, there is a call for member states to look into the possibility of a joint secretariat to lead the environment and health process in the region. What is the opportunity for that? And what are the challenges if we are to go in that direction?
Okay, thank you, Wandy, and it's a pleasure to be joining you here today. Indeed, but the challenges which are being addressed in the Ostrava Declaration are not generally new challenges. And in UNECE, we've been offering a number of treaties for many years which help countries address these challenges. And maybe I can just give a few examples. One is the Protocol on Water and Health, which was actually born out of the environment and health process. It's serviced jointly by WHO Europe and UNECE. It was adopted back in 1999, but it really anticipated the 2030 agenda. It is built around a group of areas where countries may wish to work on improvements, such as water supply, sewerage, protection of water supplies, water-related diseases, and so on, and gives countries the opportunity to voluntarily set targets to address these different areas. So it's a very nice instrument, and it's really responding very well also to the 2030 agenda in terms of its program of work. There's work now on water, sanitation and hygiene in hospitals and schools, for example. A second instrument is our Convention on the Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution. This was the oldest of the UN multilateral environmental agreements, adopted back in 1979. And since 1997, there has been a joint task force on the health aspects of air pollution, jointly established by the governing body of the Air Convention and by the WHO Regional Centre on Environment and Health. So that has also been working for a long time. The Air Convention is supplemented by a large number of protocols which set emission limits. So there are binding obligations of parties to the Convention and its protocols. But also, last year, in Batumi indeed, in the Environment for Europe Ministerial Conference, ministers launched the Batumi Action for Cleaner Air, and there they made voluntary commitments for action. So I think this is also a bit of an example and has been echoed in the Ostrava Declaration, that there is this opportunity for countries to voluntarily make commitments for action. And this is really going to be the test of the Ostrava Declaration, is what sort of actions come out. And just very quickly, this week is the meeting of the parties to the Aarhus Convention, I'll try to pronounce it correctly, which is about public participation, access to information, access to justice. And it replies very, very well to the point made by the Danish graphic designer at the beginning, because it's all about fostering dialogue between authorities, NGOs, experts, and others. So there are these different instruments available. So the question now is to actually use many of these instruments and move forward. In terms of the possible secretariat role for UNECE, I mentioned the Protocol on Water and Health. We have a very good joint secretariat there. It is underpinned by provisions in the treaty itself, a memorandum of understanding, and by annual work plans. So there are frameworks like this. We have the Pan-European Programme on Transport, Health and Environment, also been running for 20-something years, which is also a joint secretariat between WHO and UNECE, with UNECE providing the environment and transport elements. So there are examples of how it can work, but of course it is more a question of the decision of the member states as to whether they wish to go in that direction and the availability of resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Dr. Roberto Bertellini, I have so many questions for you, but I will limit them to a few. First time I heard you speaking was in 1999. I was a student. You were talking about climate change, and you've done so much in terms of projecting the science, the impact, the consequence, but also inspiring people to engage in whether it is climate change, biodiversity, chemicals, and so forth. In the 20-plus years of this process, we've seen so much, we've done so much, and the region has also changed so much. And I'm wondering, especially looking at many of the regional, let me stand up for a change, regional instruments Nick talked about, we do have a climate convention. We have quite a number of conventions to deal with sound management of chemicals, biodiversity. I feel that if we could manage, even to implement, let's say, 20% of these agreements that we sign, the world will be a very different place. Secondly, we keep on hearing the European environment and health process could actually be a model for other regions to pick up the health and environment agenda. So my simple question from those so many questions is, what advice do you give us as we move forward, not only in implementing Ostrava, but also in taking this message beyond the borders of Europe? That is the reality on climate change, that's the reality on biodiversity, depletion of biological resources. Please.
Thank you, Wendy, for the very simple question that you put to me. And also thank you for the nice words. I think, you know, I have to start from a personal feeling. I mean, I'm pretty happy today here because I have listened to, I've seen the presence of prime ministers and at the regional committee, and this shows that thanks to the vision and the commitments of the regional director and the vision that has been expressed in the previous years, we are now finally moving the agenda upwards. And this is very crucial and important. I'm also happy because the Director General mentioned climate change and environment as key issues. So this is also important because this means that the organization is taking these two challenges even more than has been taking those challenges in the past. So there are signals also coming from the outside world because of the predominance that the Agenda 2030 is actually taking in the development of the political agenda. And even this, in the regional committee, we had an entire day devoted to sustainable development and the implications of health and other sectors and so forth. So we are changing the scenario, the framework. And I think this is a very important point. And it's the first time, really, yes, there's been here and there some discussions, different conferences and meetings, but this is probably the first time that this type of level of concern reaches the Prime Minister level. And also what Laszlo was mentioning, the establishment of this office in Romania, it's a very important additional point. So in my view, we are in a very important transitional time in which there is the end of an era. I've been in a meeting yesterday of completely different settings, and people are talking about the end of the post-Cold War era. So meaning that even the period following the 1989 is over. So we are now trying to have a new international context, and I can see that this agenda for development is putting some first elements of a sort of more global vision of the future of the policy in the world, just making, joint vision, joint commitments, which are good for all the countries. So there are these things coming up and happening. And I would like to just, I know that the time is short, but to mention a few keywords. One keyword that I think is important is networking. We need to have the different sectors working hand in hand within a consistent framework, and we need a second keyword, political coherence. This is a big problem, it's an important issue within countries, among countries, within international organizations, and I think we need to do more efforts to make sure that this is taking place. We don't miss political commitment. Just in these few minutes, I heard Batumi, Paris, Addis Abeba, Protocol on Water and Health, Aarhus Convention, the PEP, and you name it. So I fully agree with you. If we would be able to implement a little bit of what has been already agreed, and if we remember what has been agreed, with a lot of work and meetings and missions and discussions and nights of negotiations and so on and so forth, and we try to implement these type of things a little bit, that would make a major, major change. Of course, on top of all of this, there is the major environmental change, environmental security that we need to pursue. The issue of climate change is becoming paramount importance now. And I think, with these keywords, maybe we can, advance the agenda. Let me just conclude with a single word. I was very pleased with what has been said before by Nicholas, that perhaps this process and what has been happening, actually in this room as well in 2004, was anticipating some issues which became more well-known and well appreciated later on. You mentioned protocol on water, I would mention the Transboundary Charter. Perhaps WHO has been in some areas, I'm sorry to say this, is a little bit of a pride, anticipating things when the context was not too mature for implementation. Perhaps now the maturity is there.
So I think we are almost running out of time, but if I am to sum up, if we want to implement the Ostrava commitments, we need intersectoral intervention. We have to work together. Let's implement all the commitments that we have made in the past. We do have very useful instruments, legally binding instruments. We should use them more effectively. We have to work at the national level, across ministry, which is almost similar to what Mr. Minister said. But also twinning exercise, having peer learning from other countries, which today happens to be the International Day for South-South Cooperation, something that we very much need. And if I could add one more comment to what Roberto said, if you look at the 2030 agenda, there's one thing that it's hidden in the midst of implementation. It's in goal 17. It's called systems issues, systemic issues. And it talks about three things. One is we need to have policy and institutional coherence. I think that is one of the challenges we have. We are incoherent in many ways, so we need to be more coherent, whether it is with the UN agencies, member states, or other institutions. The second one is multi-stakeholder partnership. Partnership plays an important role. We need to bring everybody to the table. And the last one is about data, 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 data. If we don't have the right data, if a data is missing, please remember it is as good as a person is missing. And we cannot afford that, especially if we want to implement the Ostrava Declaration and, on environment and health. We need to work together. And let me say thank you very much to all of you. We are all in the team of beating pollution, and we need to work together to beat pollution. And that is what the younger generation, but also the present generation requires. Thank you very much.
I shall now open the debate, and I request delegates wishing to speak, please raise your nameplate. I give the floor to the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. The floor is yours. Followed by Estonia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable Director General, Honorable Regional Director, distinguished delegates. Thank you, Dr. Matic, for your presentation, and one more time, congratulations on the Ostrava meeting. It is true that we need to put the environment as one of the most important determinants of health. From day to day, it is becoming more and more pressing and clear that the environment issue needs to be addressed with an intersectorial approach. Republic of Macedonia has recognized this importance of the issue, and a few years ago we started working on our own national strategy for health and environment. At this point, I would like to recognize the support and the input we have received by the World Health Organization Euro Office in Copenhagen, the World Health Organization European Center for Environment and Health in Bonn, and of course our country office. This was a long process of drafts and debates involving the national experts in Macedonia as well as the international experts provided by the WHO, but in the end, a comprehensive national strategy was prepared. We now need to move to step 2 to take this document to the government and start implementing it. It is a challenging process, but we believe that this is the right way to go. Again, the environmental issues need to be addressed as soon as today, multi-sectoral, in order to have success and to have the positive impact on the health of the citizens of our country. Therefore, we strongly support the Ostrava Declaration, and we hope that all of us will see the results in the future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor to Estonia, followed by France.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be relatively brief. EU and its member states are fully committed to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, and we are pleased to see the European environment and health process leveraged for the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. We have a small amendment to the resolution in ConfDoc/8. We have submitted the amendment in writing, but I will read it also out. In operative paragraph 6e, after the word governing, we would like to delete the word bodies and replace it with a singular body. And after WHO, to add the words at its request to the governing body of. And as what I read out does not make any sense, then I will read out how the sentence would read as amended. To report annually on the progress of the European environment and health process and its achievements to the governing body of WHO and, at its request, to the governing body of UNECE, and to keep them regularly informed of its work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Estonia, and I give the floor to France, followed by the Russian Federation.
Thank you very much, President. The environmental process concerns us all, actors of health. But this also requires bolster cooperation with our counterparts in the environmental sector, in the industrial and transport sector and agricultural sector, and also territorial collectivities. This process underscores once again the intersectoral nature of the activities to be carried out and the need to include health in all policies and the importance of prevention at all levels. France welcomes the intersectoral consultations and the inclusive negotiations that took place since September 2016 and which led collectively to new commitments of the Ministerial Ostrava Declaration. France is delighted with the scope of this declaration. It enables us to root the environmental process in a new regional momentum in keeping with the SDGs. Now, for each of us, it's about developing national action plans. For France, the reduction of environmental risks is a top national priority. Since 2004, we have been developing plans together with the Ministry for Health, the Environment, Transport, and other institutional partners. Along these lines, France attaches great importance to the inclusive process when it comes to developing plans. We involve civil society in this process and we involve the scientific community. Today, France is implementing its third National Action Plan, Health and Environment, for the period up until 2019. This plan contains various categories. It deals with internal and external air quality, the use of chemicals, and also the quality of water for human consumption. We have a national strategy, and these are some of our flagship programs I've just mentioned to further bolster this action, France has adopted an ambitious climate plan, and we are seeking to promote international cooperation in order to achieve the goals set forth in the Paris Agreement. We are doing this at a national level. We are highlighting the links between climate change, the environment, and health. The Irma hurricane is further proof of the destructive nature of climate change. I would like to highlight the importance of coordinated action involving the different agencies of the UN system and also the relevant stakeholders. By taking joint action, we can be more effective and we can make swifter progress. France will send out this message during the 3rd UN Assembly on the Environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor to the Russian Federation, followed by Poland.
President, the Russian Federation supports the document on the progress in the field of the environment and health in the context of the Health 2020 policy and the Sustainable Development Agenda up until 2030. We took part in the Ministerial conference in Ostrava, and I would like to point out that the environment is one of the most important determinants of human health. In this connection, it is vital to develop comprehensive measures based on targeting the environment and protecting human health, particularly protecting vulnerable groups. In the Russian Federation, to protect the population and to protect the environment, the president of the country has adopted a whole array of documents in the environmental and security field, environmental development, environmental security. The aims of these plans are to reduce to an acceptable level the negative impact of dangerous chemical substances affecting the population and the environment. To guarantee economic growth in an environmentally friendly way and to satisfy the needs of present generations and future generations, we are committed to the implementation of the decisions adopted at the Ministerial Conference on the Environment and Health that took place in Ostrava this year. And we support the draft resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor to Poland, followed by Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Director General, Madam Regional Director, colleagues. Firstly, Poland would like to thank the government of Czech Republic, the Moravian Silesian region, and the city of Ostrava for hosting the 6th Ministerial Conference on Environment and Health, and the regional office as well for its successive outcome. Poland welcomes the declaration as an important step to tackle emerging environment and health challenges. We encourage all stakeholders to further strengthen the efforts to reduce the burden of environment on health and to reduce the number of avoidable deaths attributed to environmental factors. Our government pays high importance to a multi-sectorial approach with regard to curbing the negative impact of air pollution and poor waste management on health. We do that by engaging health, environment, energy, transport, and development sectors. Bearing in mind the importance of cross-sectoral cooperation, we encourage the regional director to foster cooperation of the regional office with all intergovernmental organizations that work on sustainable chemical management, including ILO and Food and Agriculture Organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor to Belgium, followed by Austria.
Madam Chair, Director General, Madam Regional Director, dear colleagues. Belgium welcomes the Ostrava Declaration and is happy to note that environment and health have found its way back onto the international agenda. We encourage WHO to continue to develop expertise in the area of health and environment. Indeed, the political process is certainly important, but has to be supported by sound technical expertise. Therefore, we repeat that research on the links between environment and health has to be promoted. WHO should strengthen its role as a trusted reference, providing reliable information on environment and health in the jungle of available environment and health information. Also, through choosing the adequate communication channels, especially targeting young people. We encourage that the health and environment sectors work together, learn from each other, and share best practices. Why not integrate more environment and health questions in the joint external evaluation tool addressing the international health regulations to evaluate the environmental health strategies and policies of a country? Next to the self-evaluations already in place, external evaluations could help to further fine-tune the national environmental health action plans. We encourage cross-sectoral initiatives and cooperation between the environment and health sectors and all other relevant sectors in a true one world, one health approach. We value the cooperation between WHO and other institutions working towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and within other relevant multilateral processes, such as the Convention on Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution and the Strategic Approach to International Chemicals Management. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And Estonia asked again for the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I truly, sincerely apologize. I took the floor to correct an unfortunate mishap we just had. The amendment that I read out on behalf of EU and its member states was to an earlier version of that document, of the resolution, to ConfDoc 8, and not to ConfDoc/8 Ref 1, which was tabled at the session. I do apologize very much. However, we do have a very slight amendment also to the ConfDoc 8 Ref 1. And this is to operative paragraph 6, E, to add the words "at its request" after the words "Regional Committee for Europe" and. So the sentence would read, to report annually to the WHO Regional Committee for Europe and, at its request, to the Committee on Environmental Policy of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe on the progress of the EHP and its achievements. Apologies once more, and thank you for giving us the floor again. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Estonia, for this clarification, and I give the floor to Austria, followed by Monaco.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much, President. Yes. I would also I would like to endorse the statement made by Estonia on behalf of the EU and its member states. Austria welcomes the statement of the member states during the 6th Ministerial Conference on Environment and Health. We would like to thank the Czech Republic for hosting this important conference. Austria has made the environmental process a key part of its national policy, and we support the activities of the Ministerial Conference. We support intersectoral cooperation in order to promote health in Europe. Austria, since the start of this process, has been committed to work in the field of health and the environment and makes a key contribution. In the declaration, there are 7 areas that highlight the significance of intersectoral cooperation in member states. In parallel to work on the Declaration of Ostrava, we are trying to involve young people in this process so that they can come up with their own suggestions for their own future. The International Youth Conference is met in November 2016 and presented its results. Now, one important issue is the involvement of young people in the future in this process. We support the bolstered cooperation between the health sector and the transport sector, and we're taking active participation in pan-European programs on transport. Now, this program, PEP, is a program whereby health, transport, and the environment promote environmentally friendly mobility and can bring about successful cooperation. Together with France and many other member states of the WHO and the UNECE, we are having the first pan-European master plan. We would like to announce now that in 2019, the 5th Pan-Ministerial Conference will take place in Vienna on the environment, and we hope to see you all there in great numbers. Austria institutionally welcomes the facilitation of the work of the European Task Force, and we support its work. We support the draft resolution and we support the draft amendments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I give the floor to Monaco, followed by Israel.
Thank you very much, President. Monaco is committed to the preservation of the environment and human health. The government of Monaco supports for several years now the essential work of the WHO on the environmental determinants of health, particularly in terms of atmospheric pollution and climate change. This cross-cutting issue symbolizes the added value to the 2030 agenda, which encourages us to adopt a holistic approach. This interconnection is reflected in the statement, the Declaration of Monaco, adopted at the Conference on SIDS, and it was called Health in All Policies, Health in All of the SDGs. It calls for action on climate change. At a national level, the government is taking various measures along these lines. In particular, we'd like to recall our commitment during COP21 to reduce by 50% its greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. This is reflected in a transitional energy plan. At a regional level, this problem is of major concern, and there are two processes that are not fully exploited: the European Environmental Process, EHP, and also PEP, the Pan-European Process for Health, Transport and the Environment. Now, other than the measures announced at Ostrava and recalled in this report, we encourage the regional office to pursue reflection with UNECE and UNEP to ensure that all processes are put in place to bring about added value. We ask the regional director to put forward proposals along these lines at the forthcoming conference in 2018. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor to Israel, followed by Hungary.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chair. Israel is committed to environmental and ministerial process, both in the implementation of a national environmental health program and involvement in the activities of the EH task force. In Israel, we still have a long way to go. In a recent estimation done by the Ministry of Health, more than 2,000 people a year die of air pollution in Israel. The challenges that are facing the state of Israel in the field of environmental health are being reported in a tri-annual report published by the Ministry of Health. The last report was published in 2014, and that 2017 is soon to be published. Based on this report, we are in an advanced stage of developing a national environmental health program. I would like to address an important issue that we believe have to be addressed by WHO in order to assist health ministries to be implemented. This is the issue of health impact assessment. For example, in Israel, the Minister of Health did not succeed to include it as a mandatory tool in environmental health legislation. Conditions in the places where we live, work and play have a tremendous impact on the population's health. It is much easier to stay healthy when we can easily and safely walk, run or bike, when we have a clean air, healthy food and access to affordable housing, when we are safe from things like violent crimes, fires and lead poisoning. Everyday policymakers in many sectors have opportunities to make choices. that, if they took health into account, could help stem the growth of pressing health problems like obesity, injury, asthma, and diabetes that have a major impact on our population's health, quality of life, and related costs. Health impact assessment can help policymakers to take advantage of these opportunities by bringing together scientific data, health expertise, and public input to identify the potential and often overlooked health effects of proposed new laws, regulations, projects, and programs. If it offers practical recommendations for ways to minimize risk and capitalize on opportunities to improve health. HIA can give legislators, public agencies, and other decision makers the information they need to advance smarter policies today to help build safe, thriving communities tomorrow. We therefore recommend to urge member states to implement HIA in terms of legislation as well as development of local and national expertise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor to Hungary, followed by Kazakhstan.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of Hungarian delegation, I would like to draw your attention to the importance of environmental health tools in the fight against non-communicable disease, especially cardiovascular, respiratory disease, cancers, and allergies. Hungary has always been an active contributor to and partner in the environment and health-related process of the European region and remains dedicated by active participation onwards. We participated in the Ostrava Ministerial Conference as well and contributed to the side event called Water and Sanitation at Schools during the high-level conference on promoting intersectoral and interagency action for health and well-being in the WHO European region, working together for better health and well-being, which took place in Paris in December 2016. However, it has to be acknowledged that there is still much work ahead of us to fulfill the commitments of the United Nations 2013 Agenda for Sustainable Development and Health 2020. Seeing the global emerging trend of NCDs, prevalence and the growing burden of disease caused by environmental risk factors, we consider reducing or minimizing their health effects as a top priority. We find indoor air quality, chemical safety, and safe and equitable access to water and sanitation in all settings used by children as the most important fields of action. With special respect to the latter one, Hungary offers its continued support and active participation in the implementation of the protocol on water and health. We recognize these areas of intervention as core elements of the future national portfolios for action. In order to address these priority areas effectively, we find it crucial importance to gain high-level policy commitment and coherence between related policy areas, multi-sectoral engagement and collaboration, resource mobilization, strengthening of public health structures and functions, and capacity building if needed. We believe that the Budapest Declaration of the Second World Water Summit held in November 2016 in Hungary focused in special areas and targeted aims which highly correspond with the priorities of the Ostrava Declaration. Therefore, we recognize the benefits of possible synergies between these two processes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor to Kazakhstan, followed by Italy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Director General, Director Regional. Kazakhstan support initiatives of the WHO and the Czech Republic in the environmental protection. We analyze the situation in our republic. The Ministry of Health is constantly analyzing the air pollution and the water supply and the quality of the water. We saw that we have some troubles in these questions, and we prepared the risk map of environmental influence of the health on the population. We saw that in some of our region we have trouble with the air. In some of our region we have some troubles of the water supply. And we will prepare the proposal to our government to change some regulation in the terms of the chemical emissions. But if it will be the position only one of the healthcare ministry, it will be most trustable if the WHO is present, maybe help us to prepare the methodological basic to our proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I give the floor to Italy, followed by Denmark.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, RD, for building up on the Ostrava conference legacy. Italy aligns itself with the Estonian statement, actually both, on behalf of the European Union and its member states. Italy endorses the resolution and encourages WHO to take a very active role and champion for its full adoption and implementation. In line with this, we have been working hand in hand with WHO and other international partners in shaping the G7 2017 health agenda under the Italian presidency. We have launched a global experts consultation and incorporated results in a comprehensive SDG-based foresight exercise for our Minister of Health to discuss at the forthcoming Milano Ministerial meeting scheduled for early November. The main topic will be, in fact, climate change and environmental degradation. We have noted and adopted also 2 recent EU directives on environment and health and on water safety and related impact assessment and monitoring plans. National guidelines and prescriptions have been generated at a light speed for otherwise low bureaucracy, underlining the urgency of the matter. Italy is convinced that the interaction of climate change and environmental degradation is the major preventable challenge to our survival on the planet. Accordingly, we are supporting the emerging concept of planetary health developed by a dedicated Lancet Commission, which will be discussed at the UNGA special event on next 22nd September in New York. Water shortage, extreme weather events such as heat waves, vectors and vector-borne diseases migration, as well as human mass migration, inadequate waste management, air pollution, neglected urban health, the worst forest fire season in the past 30 years are all major attacks on our fragile ecosystems and the sides of the same coin. Despite some irresponsible denials, hurricanes and tornadoes in the US, droughts in southern Europe and in several African sub-regions surprisingly neglected by the media, massive floods in southern Asia, desertification of Mediterranean areas, water level increase threatening small island states. Our GDO office in Venice is a small island, in fact. The criminal poisoning of our water sources and reservoirs and of our atmosphere become so frequent to be considered almost inevitable by our public opinion, and this must be amended. We are monitoring mortality peaks in our elderly as well as in our fragile youngsters, becoming rather frequent in the past 5 years, and clearly linked to a combination of environmental factors, especially in our cities. The emerging evidence of air and environmental pollution epigenetic impact must be emphasized, and WHO is in the position of making a solid case leading us towards difficult yet vital decisions and to promote aggressively the adoption of the Ostrava Declaration, providing a clear vision of what is likely to happen otherwise. It is definitely not by promoting good nutrition only that we will be able to combat this metabolic obesity, the silent epidemics of autistic syndrome, and the loss of both masculine and female fertility, just to make 3 very different examples that are clearly associated to pollution. The case made by WHO with the member states' support will also help investments on reclaiming polluted sites that only my country will require an estimated 110 billion euros and more than 10 years of work. Decision makers will have to be confronted with the value of mid to long-term investments at the regional level if we want to implement Ostrava's promising framework seriously, and we hope that the G7 will help catalytically in this endeavor. As you may also remember, Pope Francis himself is a formidable supporter in this field. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and I give the floor to Denmark, followed by Greece.
Thank you, Chair. Denmark applauds Estonia for so diligently correcting the EU statement, and we are of course aligned. Denmark would also like to thank the WHO Regional Office for Europe and the government of the Czech Republic for hosting and organizing the 6th Ministerial Conference on Environment and Health. And we also recognize and appreciate the valuable contributions of the Secretariat and of the Member States within the European Environment and Health process. Denmark sees a strong need for greater cooperation across different sectors to reduce environmentally related health risks and thereby decreasing the burden of disease caused by environmental factors. The Ministerial Declaration and its Annex 1 is an important tool to reduce environment-related health risks. Now we need to ensure that words will lead to action. The 7 prioritized areas in the declaration are highly relevant in these efforts to reduce the burden of disease from environmental risks. Like most other regions in the most other countries in the region, Denmark already works widely with these areas across different sectors and different levels of government. In Denmark, we have had good progress thanks to an intersectoral group where the health, environment, transport, and food sectors have met regularly for more than 10 years. This group works as a useful platform for information sharing and coordinating across the relevant sectors and authorities. We can strongly recommend the establishment of such a national coordinating body, as is also suggested in the Ministerial Declaration. Denmark welcomes the new institutional arrangement with one single coordinating body and the closure of the Ministerial Board. We look forward to a more operational structure and an increased cooperation with other member states in the European Environment and Health Task Force. Thank you.
Thank you, Denmark, and I give the floor to Greece.
Thank you, Chair. Please allow me to express our alignment with the Estonia statement. It's a common ground that we live in an unstable and constantly changing world. The protection of the environment is a key factor for public health and ultimately for the survival of mankind. Remember that in Europe alone, 1.4 million deaths are related to environmental problems. This brings forth our legal, ethical, and political duty to make environment protection and public health a priority across all government sectors. The relationship between sustainable development, health, and environment is dynamic and complementary. Financial constraints, inequalities, extreme weather events, non-communicable diseases, an aging population, rapid urbanization, and the magnitude of migration are all impactful parameters for the health of Europeans. All these require smart and good government approaches, as well as the involvement of citizens. Moreover, it's important for the health sector to revise its role in the context of a whole-of-government approach. In the European region, holistic and societal and governmental approaches, the core principles of Health 2020, could break the silos and promote interlinkages and cooperation by bringing all stakeholders together and by putting people at the center. We recognize that the most important opportunity and challenge SDGs offer is the improvement of coordination and coherence of intersectoral policies. In this regard, we welcome and support WHO's effort for intersectoral cooperation. We also agree with the necessity of focusing actions not only at the national level, but also at the subnational and urban levels. The 6th Ministerial Conference on Environment and Health, the Ostrava Declaration, is a turning point, marking the first in an era of a new 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Health 2020 to create supportive environments and resilient communities. Especially the 4th pillar of Health 2020, creating supportive environments and resilient communities at the regional level, takes into account a holistic view of sustainable social, economic, and environmental considerations. Cities need to have a sustainability plan, and the Ostrava Declaration will help in this regard. In Greece, despite our fiscal difficulties, we believe that inertia is not an option. We believe that it is possible to take effective action so as to achieve a sustainable and long-term growth. In this time period, it is necessary to immediately undertake national initiatives in the context of thinking globally but acting locally. The Greek Ministry of Health, in full accordance of the Ostrava Declaration, has issued all the necessary and relevant ministerial decisions regarding drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene. It's worth noting that with respect to the Target 4 of SDGs, the well-being of the population, hereby measured by the percentage of population with improved sanitation facilities, Greece has made significant progress, particularly in rural areas. Moreover, the Greek Ministry of Health has designated a series of actions concerning indoor and outdoor air quality, as well as various hazardous chemicals. Our strong will and commitment is to cooperate with competent ministries, and especially the Ministry of Environment and Energy, towards ratifying the Declaration of Ostrava as a coherent and inclusive public health policy in close cooperation with WHO. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have no more member states on my list, and I have one NGO, and I give the floor to the World Organization of Family Doctors.
Distinguished members of the WHO Regional Committee for Europe, on behalf of the Council of Occupational Therapists for the European countries, the Healthcare Without Harm Europe, Medicus Mundi International, the World Federation of Occupational Therapists, and the European region of the Organization of Family Doctors, WONCA Europe, we would like to highlight that planetary health is fundamental for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Climate change must be addressed with high priority in humanity's most vital interest. The Ostrava Declaration called for building environmental sustainability for health systems and reducing their environmental impact, which can result in protecting the health of staff and patients, the environment, and saving financial resources. Primary care is a pillar for sustainable health systems, building upon interprofessional collaboration to deliver equitable, affordable, high quality, and comprehensive services. We understand that systematic work with health promotion can become a strategy for sustainable development. And primary healthcare professionals, as the gatekeepers and coordinators of many health services, can safeguard people's health by reducing overdiagnosis and overtreatment in such ways as the rationalization of the antibiotic use, assisting patients in prioritizing and avoiding excessive and harmful investigations. As professionals of the primary care team, first, we can use our position of having access to most of the population to increase our patients' awareness of problems threatening both individual health and the planet. We can promote behavioral changes and empower our patients to live a healthier and more sustainable lifestyle. Second, we can play an active role in supporting the educational efforts of educational institutions and in shaping training curricula of health professionals to include planetary health. And finally, we call upon member states to develop policies addressing environmental sustainability together with human health and development goals. Honourable Chair and distinguished members of the Regional Committee, primary healthcare is a green medicine. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And we have another NGO, so we will suspend this agenda item and we'll come back to it tomorrow and with the Euro Health Net, and then continue our discussion on this agenda item. Tomorrow morning, the representatives of non-governmental organizations can meet at 8 o'clock in room Bartok. This evening, the regional director invites us to a reception which starts at 7:30 in a beautiful historical building at the Danube bank called Bigado. Buses will leave immediately after the session ends to your hotels and then to the venue. And all buses, including the one from Novotel, will leave at 10 to 7, and I would encourage to take the buses. Those coming by bus can pass the security gates and it makes your life easier. All delegates going to the reception should go to the buses through the main venue door as to avoid another security check upon arrival at Bigado. And I would like to remind delegations to hand over their statements in advance for the interpreters to make their life easier, and I would like to thank the interpreters for staying longer this evening. Enjoy the evening. We will resume our discussion from yesterday on agenda item 5b on improving environment and health in the context of Health 2020 and the 2030 agenda on sustainable development, outcomes of the 6th Ministerial Conference on Environment and Health. I would like to invite the EuroHealthNet representative to deliver his statement. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, Chair, Honourable Regional Director, distinguished delegates. Our living patterns in Europe must change radically as they are damaging global ecosystems, depleting our natural resources and generating pollution at a wide scale. The negative effects of our sedentary lifestyles, overconsumption of processed foods and stressful way of living can also be seen in the rising levels of NCDs. The link between health equity, environment and our way of living is clear. EuroHealthNet welcomes the Ostrava Declaration and calls for specific actions across Europe to enhance the conditions for more healthier and sustainable living patterns. The WHO should also find ways to mitigate climate change as well as improve health across sectors. So in addition to green health systems, we must ensure adequate green spaces and communities, good conditions for active travel and energy-efficient housing. For food consumption, we need to work with producers along food chains. Effective policy and regulations remain essential to change unhealthy and unsustainable approaches used by industries to produce and promote their products. At the same time, WHO and Member States need to step up action in a world where innovation, information and technology are moving fast. For example, much can be done to implement the circular economy to also achieve positive health equity impacts. The WHO can guide and lead on this and on how commercial determinants of health can be addressed. Improving health literacy is key to enable people to make healthy choices, but it must go hand in hand with sustainability literacy. For example, improved literacy about how our food is produced can stimulate better food choices and bringing multiple local and global benefits. EuroHealthNet and its member institutions are building evidence to inspire policies for sustainable moving, consuming and living through major EU initiatives called Inherit. And we congratulate WHO on the outcomes of the 6th Ministerial Conference on Environment and Health. We are ready to work in cooperation with Member States and with the WHO to work to achieve these common goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And there was also a written statement on this topic of the World Federation of Neurology, which you will find on the website. Thank you all for your active participation, and now I would like to invite the RD to respond to this.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for all your support to the environment and health process and your active participation in the Ostrava conference. What I would like to promise to you is that we will make sure that implementation is taking place and it is speeded up. And we will work very actively with you to develop the portfolio of action. And as you know, both in Haifa during the midterm evaluation and also in Ostrava, we took stock of what has been implemented, what are the outstanding issues, and implementation will be key for us. The other comment I want to make is that you suggested several issues during the course of the debate, for which I would like to thank you. We took notes of this and we will integrate them into the process, like working closely with ILO and FAO on chemicals, or put more investment into health impact assessment, or link the different processes which is already taking place. So thank you for that, and just to reassure you that all is well noted and they will be integrated in our work. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Before we close this agenda item, I would like you to consider the adoption of the proposed draft resolution contained in EUR/RC67/ConfDoc 8-Rev1, improving environment and health in the context of Health 2020 and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. outcomes of the 6th Ministerial Conference on Environment and Health. Is the committee willing to adopt the proposed draft resolution as amended by consensus? I see no objections. The resolution is therefore adopted.